Hey, 5 participants. Oh, look at that. Everybody's everybody's trying to participating.
Straight.
Okay. We have enough to make a quorum. Need at least we need well, 5, so that's
Yeah.
all right. So we call meeting to
Do you have an extra agenda?
yeah, yes. Call the meeting to order.
Second. Minutes.
Yeah.
Second.
Yep. Do you want minutes to?
Again.
He passed it down.
I can. Right. Um. Yes, call meeting to order, 5 o'clock. Okay, so I would like to review and approve minutes of prior meeting. I emailed them out last week. Has everybody looked at them?
Yes,
Yes.
I have.
Do we need any more time to look at them?
No.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
No, you asked for a motion.
Oh, do I ask for
I'll
a
make a motion to accept the minutes.
second?
Okay.
Lenny, aye.
Pelletier,
Make peace O'Neill, aye.
Bolton, I.
Stalker, aye.
Dave?
Here, I, or Dave, I.
And I'll abstain. I wasn't present. Garrett abstains.
Go. All right, do we have any public comment? Okay. Any old business that anybody wants to go over?
I don't have anything.
No, I'm gonna run upstairs to do the presentation for my office.
Okay. All right, do I have to, are you gonna try it?
So pop in.
You're gonna, okay,
Give her the permission.
yep.
Everybody's coughing lately, I've noticed.
I've noticed that too. She's supposed to top.
I know, but
Very hot nose.
how do you want that abbreviated then? Tell me how you want it and I'll make it happen. I was thinking about that and then I was thinking.
Oh,
maybe-
and he could put OV. Or CO of P.
CO is some more appropriate cost.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
was
if you
thinking
need I don't need it.
I don't know if
I
I
was
need that
thinking
abbreviation.
just do like C and
Okay.
then, chief without the 2 capitals.
CH
CPD.
period P. And then yours would be CH
Yeah.
period F.
I was thinking about that the other day and, let me know how you want it. I can have them change.
Oh, how about? How about CSPD? F?
Waiting for Haley to join. I have to actually. No, it's Haley.
Oh, this is awesome.
I have
really
to-
like it.
Do I have to hit the vol?
Haley, can you? Okay, no, she's there.
All right.
Okay, so.
Want to do your full screen?
Ta-da! So you can all see?
Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, great.
So this is the analysis of the survey that we did. And I just wanted to also point out that the survey was really just like a pulse point. Wasn't meant to be like really comprehensive and really in-depth, but just to get a sense of where we are and how it might impact operations. So we'll go question by question. But as a summary, we had 149 households that participated in the survey. And so some of the key takeaways are about 66% or 66 homes, 44%, have zero electrical backup during an extended power outage. 36% of the respondents, just move you guys out of my way a little. 36% of respondents said that they would be likely to use a daytime respite center if we had one, and with 32% of those within that utilizing it as their contingency. They had something happen at their house. We have about 25 homes that are high risk, and so those are individuals who are dependent on power operated medical equipment, and 62% of respondents were 65 and older. So quite a significant amount of our respondents were seniors. And one of the biggest barriers people cited, and this would obviously be more in the wintertime, but 77% of people said that hazardous road conditions would make them unlikely to leave their house in any situation. So the core of the survey was, if we had a temporary daylight hour cooling or warming center, how likely would you be to use it? And about 36% said that they would use it. About 49 homes said it would be their secondary option. So if they could meet up with a friend or get a hotel, this would be their option. Only about 3% or 5 homes said that that would be their primary way to cool down or stay warm. And by and large, most people, 64%, 95 homes, said that they would prefer to stay in place, not leave, and that they're self-sufficient enough that they don't have any issue, which is pretty significant. So if we go to questions 8 and 9 of the survey, so question 8 asked about medical devices. So again, 25 households rely on electricity for things like their CPAP machine, oxygen, nebulizers, insulin. And to me, that is the need to create a high-risk household registry, right? So how do we make sure that we're aware of people who live in town that have medical devices like this that we would need to prioritize or make sure that we did outreach to in the event that something happened. And then question 9 asked about vulnerability. So we looked at a couple different factors. So whether that was somebody aged 65 and older, or younger than 5 years, or who had a chronic medical condition. And so that's some of the breakdown of how people answered individually. And looking again at demographics, so most of our respondents were older adults, but we did have almost 20% in that 50 to 64 age bracket, and then it pretty much just goes down from there. So you'll see that there's not that many people were on the younger side, and there were a couple people who just opted not to respond to this question at all. But in terms of the senior representation, so again, we're seeing 91 of 148 respondents, because one person just straight up didn't want to answer, just fine. So I think that is reflective of where we are demographically as a town. 149 responses is a pretty good sample size. That's about 1 in 5 households. So I think that is statistically significant. And so most of our respondents, or not most, but 17% live alone. And the remaining percent live with, some combination of friends, family, or roommates. So I think that, just as we would want to focus on people who have like a medical issue or some kind of device that needs power, we would also want to look at residents who live alone as being people that we do special outreach to. So breaking down question 4, we're going to look at backup power capabilities. And so most people don't have a backup source, but there were several homes that have some ability to keep the lights on or to keep the heat on, the AC on, even in a power outage, right? But I think it is important to note that we're dealing with, at least 66 homes that we know of that don't have any way to, they're entirely dependent on the grid. So looking at propane, cordwood, that was actually a little bit higher than I thought. Solar battery, electric or heat pumps were all represented. And then, let's see. So surprisingly enough to me, 98 households can survive on 48 plus hours if they lost heat. So I think that's really incredible. Really underscores our resilience as a community. And then of course the numbers just kind of go down from there. And there is a small, about 5% contingent of households who don't have the capability to do anything that are under 12 hours. And flipping the script, so from heating to cooling, most people have air conditioners or central air, but there are a few people who either just have fans or not even that, people with mini splits. But so I think that does show that although it's not a large percentage, that there are still some pockets of people who, you know, if it was a weather like last Friday where it was wicked hot and wicked humid, you know, that they're going to be suffering at home. Over 16% of households have, you know, again, no mechanical AC. And so these people would be especially vulnerable if the grid went down. And I'll give Susan a shout out for sharing that AARP article earlier. So heat exhaustion is particularly dangerous for our elderly residents in town. And then, you know, looking ahead to the winter months, hazardous road conditions, driveway clearance delays, and just a reluctance to leave are some of the barriers for people accessing heating centers in the wintertime. You know, whether people are reluctant to leave due to they have a pet at home or they just want to make sure that, you know, if a pipe bursts, they're there to address it right away. And then obviously, you know, hazardous roads, you know, weighing that, you know, would we like people to use a heating center if they need it? Yes, but do we want them on icy roads? Probably not. So that's a balance of power. But by and large, most people can move around independently. That was the overwhelming majority. There was 2 households in the survey that said that they would need help getting from their residence to, you know, a municipal cooling center, which is really important to know. 11 homes, 7% of respondents have had to vacate, you know, due to some severe weather phenomenon. But most people, when they do that, they stay with friends or relatives, or a couple people got hotel rooms. So kind of parsing it all down into a vulnerability matrix. So we have again, no backup power or some kind of dependence on a medical device that uses electricity. That's going to be our high vulnerability point. You know, folks that don't have a generator and, you know, could use the municipal resource as a backup plan, like your middle level. And then there's a percentage of people who are just totally self-sufficient and don't need or have a desire for it. So this is breaking down kind of the action steps. So in looking at the data, 4 things really stood out to me. So that's getting a registry of vulnerable residents so that we know, okay, Mr. Jones lives alone and he's got a CPAP machine and insulin, and he's someone that we really want to make sure that if the power goes out, and will be out for an extended period of time, that we know he's got what he needs to be okay. Because people use town buildings as like a contingency plan, I think just making sure that we promote our existing operating hours is really important. That, you know, hey, you might not realize that on Wednesday, the library is open till 7 o'clock. I don't actually know if it is, but just hypothetically, you know, and you can go there if you want to cool down for a little bit. And then defining the activation triggers, right? So what are the thresholds at which we would need to have met in order to open up a center? And then expanding our Bright Arrow, formerly Code Red, outreach so that people are enrolled in that program and that they get the broadcasts that are not email based, because we could send SMS, text messages, and calls through Bright Arrow to alert people of changes. So diving deeper into the first recommendation is the registry, right? So we kind of already have a sense of, you know, transportation needs, living alone, medical devices. So how do we do some targeted outreach to those individuals and any others who may fall into that category? to make sure that they know that we want, we would like to just help keep an eye on them if something goes wrong, making sure that people know that it's confidential and that they can opt in or out at any time. And that would be something we would have to do through, through mailings, through the website, partnering with the COA or maybe Village Neighbors too. Proactive emergency check-ins, right? So making sure that we have automated alerts that go out. Okay, we get the notice from National Grid. It says there's going to be an outage for however many hours, making sure that we push those notifications out so that people know what to expect. And then recruiting and training wellness volunteers. So once you have a registry, that's great, but you have to do something with it. And so making sure that we have volunteers who have like maybe a list of 5 or 10 questions, and then they do, okay, we know there's going to be a big storm. So each volunteer calls 10 people and we ask them their questions. Do you have your medication? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough water? And just making sure that people have what they need in advance of the storm, I think would be a really appropriate use of our municipal resources. Promoting existing hours, again, for people who this is their contingency plan, just making sure they know what we have available to them, maybe making some designated power, charging stations, either at the library or at town hall, or maybe someday MN Sphere, and just making sure that we put that information out regularly and that people know, yes, we have drinking water, we have Wi-Fi, all available at municipal buildings. And so for number 3, and this is obviously, I think, will generate probably the most discussion from this group, but, the activation triggers, right? So if it's low level, maybe the power outage is 6 to 8 hours, you've got some temperature triggers, that could be kind of phase 1 where we're just saying, hey, buildings are open these hours, we're doing our wellness checks in advance, and then kind of tiering up. So if it's going to be more than 12 hours without power, well then, okay, what do we do? Well, we might extend the open hours of town hall. If it's a weekend, we might do 8 to 5, and making sure that whatever we do for hours and location, it has to be synchronized with the highway department, because if we're advertising that we have a cooling center, but most of the roads aren't done, it doesn't make any sense to have people out on the roads to go to the cooling center when they're trying to plow and keep them clear. And then again, just making sure that there are enough power strips and charging stations for all the devices people may have, and broadcasting that via Bright Arrow. And then if we got into something where it was really significant, obviously we have our hazard mitigation plan, but just thinking about some other ways, if it was really going to be a sustained effort, maybe bringing in that mutual aid, maybe doing more phone calls, more like sending someone to do a physical wellness check on an individual if we weren't able to reach them by phone. So those are just some of the ideas that we could use as parameters to help us define when we do certain things. And for the last one, this is, I think, one of the more straightforward ones, is just making sure that we, maybe do a special Stay Connected Shutesbury, PR campaign where we put an insert in tax bills. We add something to the annual census mailing, post information at the polls, and just try to recruit as many people as we can to sign up for Bright Arrow, so that, again, we're not reliant only on email to get information out to residents. And that was it. I'll stay up here if you guys want to see slides again for discussion purposes, but that's all I had to say.
Yeah, I think that's good.
It is good. Thank you, Haley. I noticed a couple of things. So in the group that said they were mostly self-sufficient, they've lived through several extended winter storms in Shutesbury likely, which is why they're self-sufficient too. And I appreciate the look beyond email, because if you live in an area where there's no cell service, even, you're not gonna get an email.
Yeah.
We'd want to identify any houses that are still on copper wires for telephone, because if they go down, they have no communication.
Yeah.
So just another thing to add in the list of,
Yeah.
but thank you. That's
Yes.
helpful.
I don't see anybody's hand right up.
Yeah.
Susan.
Susan.
Oh.
Can you unshare your screen, Haley, so we can see Susan?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Susan?
You're on mute, Susan.
Right, unmute. Should I just unmute all?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Now we can.
Yes, can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think 149 House responses is really good, but I would like to point out that the town announce does not go out to every household in Shutesbury. There are only a limited, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is, but there are those who don't participate in town announce, and my suspicion is that the people who participate in town announced would tend to be the most sort of with it and able to take care of themselves. But the Shutesbury, the COA newsletter, the Gazette, goes out to half the households in town. And it goes out by snail mail so that it reaches those who are maybe 60 people or so who do not have broadband. So I think this is a wonderful start and important information, but I do think that would be a good idea to look further. I also am concerned about your dismissal of evenings in a heat wave. If people are dependent on a very limited kind of source like a ceiling fan, it's going to be bad in the evenings if they go home to even try to sleep. So I'm just not convinced, given the way our climate is heading towards longer and longer heat waves and harder winter storms, that we ought to completely rule out doing anything after 5 o'clock. And the library is only open until 7 or 7:30 a couple of nights. So thanks.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And so just to throw, because when I do my Friday fives, I always like to check and see who's signed up. So we have over 700 people for town announce. But you're right, it doesn't capture everyone. And that's why at the beginning I said, this is really just a pulse. It's just a brief check-in on where kind of are we. I think we can certainly not understand the full picture, but at a 20% sample size, you can draw some general inferences, right? So we know that maybe the amount of people who don't have ACs at home is small in this survey, but if you extrapolate that out, yeah, you're likely going to see some more people. So I don't know if I would say that I dismiss the evening. I think that just becomes a matter of when we go back, and actually maybe I will reshare my screen just so I can get back to that slide. Right, so if we
Everybody's muted.
Don't,
If she's
you
not-
just dropped, oh no, she's,
Which I said, I'm sorry, but I have a hard time hearing you all. The sound comes through quite buzzy and muffled.
okay. Yeah, it might be a little much for our bandwidth to be hosting so much, but just so it doesn't necessarily have to be that we end things at 5. Even in this proposal, like town hall open till 7 o'clock, if we were to get no power. So again, and I think that's kind of the purpose of this meeting, is that these are some policy recommendations, and it's kind of up to the emergency management team to say what thresholds do we want to trigger certain events.
Haley, I'm not sure that we could do that without kind of knowing what a storm coming in would be, right? So certain level of storm would have one trigger, another storm for winter, say. There's been at least a few that I can remember where they said flurries and ended up with 18 inches of snow. So that would,
I mean, weather is so unpredictable.
yeah, so it'd be something that more so as we see the weather predictions coming in, we'd want to, I
Yeah.
think that's a moving list. It's not a hard lined list of,
I mean, I think it really should be reflected on how many people are without power. you know, it could, because it's just, if there's no power outages in town, is it really warranted to have a warming center when there's no power outages in town? Just even if we had a huge storm out.
I think it should be dependent on electricity.
Yeah,
I'm in
Yeah.
agreement with that.
so,
Yeah. Like not, warming center just because it's cold out weather then.
yeah, Garrett's had his hand up
Okay.
for a while. Garrett?
Haley, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was really well done. This may come up when we talk about Bright Arrow, but in terms of thinking about a registry and people registering for Bright Arrow, I wonder if it has the capacity when someone registers to capture that information and to serve as the database or platform for keeping it current and, doing maybe direct notifications out to those who indicate that they have a vulnerability.
Yeah, I'll answer that and then I'll head back downstairs. So yes, we have the ability to create different opt-in lists. So if we wanted to, we could specially create a list that's just for that purpose. And I think one thing I didn't mention, but I really want to make sure I underscore is that if you have the registry and we're doing wellness checks in advance of a heat wave, then we know, okay, this person might need maybe this person just needs to come down to town hall and hang out and cool down for a little while. So weather is unpredictable, but if you know who the people are that you need to do outreach for, then you know what their needs are and you know how to address them. But one of the issues is that we just don't know who all of these people are, but we've got to find them some way. And so I think that the registry could be the vehicle through which to start that outreach process. And then we'll know, oh, maybe there are 50 people who really need this service. And then that kind of helps how to plan for the future. But I'm going to head downstairs.
And I think that the Board of Health can commit our
Lenny, can you
public health
listen?
nurse to help support that work, through the health education that she does.
There was also the back many years ago, when emergency management and the Board of Health were working together in creating neighborhoods where they had grouped us. The West Pelham neighborhood had really formalized herself where we all knew all of our assets that we had in our group. We also knew who on our street needed to be checked in on. But it kind of formulated a group of neighbors that would knock on doors and check in on each other, primarily during a winter storm, because that's when the biggest need of resources was needed. And I think I had a place at one point. And then that one person would be in contact with the emergency management director or some other liaison within that. So and I think they were just calling it, forget what they were calling it. Anyway, that had started. I don't know how far it got beyond West Pelham Road.
It was Eric. He had his hand up for a while.
One question I had is the people that are that have needs regarding drugs or CPAP or whatever. How many of those people are, question 8, basically, how many of those people have auxiliary power? There's no
way to know based on that survey. So it was designed to be anonymous. So I couldn't link up. Well, I guess I could go back into the raw data and kind of see, but I don't know that it would be like the clearest indication.
Okay. Very good job, by the way. I appreciated it.
Yeah. Susan?
We can't hear you.
You're on mute
Muted.
again.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I was thinking about the program that Melissa mentioned, which I think was a wonderful idea, but didn't get too far. And if we could try that again, it would be helpful. I think the COA chairs, the 4 COA chairs who get together with village neighbors, we're talking about the importance of getting people to reach out to neighbors and see what neighbors they would have that would help them in times like this. And that would be exactly what Melissa's talking about.
And what it also provided too, because the 2 of my neighbors will never tell anyone but the fire department or police department that they need help. So, or someone they trust. So that's also something that you would encounter, like if village neighbors had reached out, or they might be okay with the COA, but they're very private people and otherwise they wouldn't. So there's also that bump in that complication, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to add that I did speak to Kat Hilton about the idea of a cooling and warming center, and she said she thought the Board of Health would help.
I would like to suggest if we put out another survey within the newsletter, that it be the same survey so that the results are easily translatable.
The data.
Well, I would actually say, so I missed part of the conversation. I would say we probably don't want to do another survey again, just because, and Susan, I know I had said this via email, you get survey fatigue. Like you're gonna get people who said, well, I already did this, why am I doing it again? So we want it to be different enough that people are still going to engage with the material. And so that's why I think that if it was a survey, again, if it was something like a, you know, based on, sorry, like registry information, you know,
Like the Bright Arrow.
yes, like if it was through that, or if it was a survey of, oh, are you interested to sign up for this registry that the town is creating? And then you can give your information. And I think it can be structured in such a way that we're not going to run into like too many HIPAA issues, because that's also a consideration. But, you know, we can be general enough that's like, what are your power needs? Do you have a pet at home? You know, do you have like if you're calling
Medication.
someone for a wellness check, do you have enough medication? Do you have, who's your emergency contact? You know, those are the kind of things. And I'm sure I have a model somewhere from Bernardston or Amherst that I could borrow. But then that would be different enough. And then you're gonna see, oh, okay, like if 5 households said that they had this critical need, but we get 20 different people who respond to the registry, then we know that the need is a little bit greater. I think it's a good, and I think it also for the town, it shows that we had a survey, we analyzed the results, and then we took this concrete step,
To go.
this really good first step to do next. And you can always build, and I like to build slowly, because if you need to revise, it's easier if you've gone slow. But that would be my advice. I think people will get burnt out on too many surveys, and we want people to stay engaged.
Yeah, it might be good to have an actual sign up list for step 2 instead of just another survey, you know. Just like you said.
And we could do it in Google Forms, just like I did this survey, and we could do it based on, you know, we need your contact information, and if we have follow-up questions, or if there is something that we thought, oh, we should have included that and we didn't, then we have their contact info. But I think that would be a little bit, yeah.
I got a good one here I could print out. Oh. Done.
Survey or a
Yes,
Form?
form to sign up, yeah.
Okay.
But I can't print at town hall. Could email it to. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and
I'll email it to you, Haley, and
And there's also some good models, like I forget the town, but there's a town in Vermont that is very similar, and they do a very similar program to what we're talking about now, which is it's a voluntary opt-in registry. And again, so if you have the registry, and then we can recruit maybe Board of Health, COA, maybe just general volunteers to make phone calls in advance, then you know, okay, and two, like, not to keep talking, but like, then you have people who you know, oh, we have this great rapport because we do these wellness checks, and maybe they want to go to the ice cream social, and they never would have known about the ice cream social if we didn't help them with this. So it's a gateway to getting people into more services.
Engage.
because people need trust.
They do.
Particularly older adults, they need the trust, and then people might not know, like, you could probably get a grant to put mini splits in, and then you don't have to have no AC. You know, you can work people up to more and more services. That's like where you start. That's your step one. So you get your registry together.
Thank you. That was very
Mhm.
good. I appreciate that. Which is a nice segue into the next agenda item.
Yes. So we're pretty much good to go on Bright Arrow. I
We don't have any more questions? The hand raised? All right. Yeah, Bright Arrow.
got the link for the public. I sent myself a test message today. So we are good to go, and I will train Lenny and Devin when you guys can pick it up and have as much fun as you want. You can choose AI voices, or you can record your own greeting. It can do, like I said, text messages. It can do text, email, and call you on the phone. And we can do different opt-ins. So like potentially people want to know only about road closures. Well, we can have a sign up list for that. Or maybe you only want to know about whatever other topic. We can set them aside. But yeah, it's a pretty intuitive platform. It's really straightforward, actually. I think that's one of the best features of it, is that it's for that. And then, we'll have that way to do reverse 911, which we haven't had because of the data breach with Code Red. So
Have you guys thought of um a registration form, quote unquote, for that? Or they
it's-
provide something
they provide it.
Okay.
So like when people will get the link and they'll click on the link, and then it walks you through the registration prompts. And again, it's pretty intuitive. We can also, like, on the back end, like if there was somebody who had problems with technology and they couldn't do the link, all they have to do is just call someone, and we can manually input
Do it
people into the list. Yeah, so that's not a problem. However, we'll need it done.
There's not a limit to administrators for the site, right? So both you, me, Devin.
Well,
Brent.
I actually don't want to do it. I would rather it be
Have someone to
emergency
make
management
team.
director or deputy director.
Yeah,
But I have the login info. It's all the same.
Yeah.
So if you don't change it, yeah, anyone could log in and do that. But
okay. All right, yeah, we should meet up at some point to go over it.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of slow learner as for tech, so I mean, granted, I figured out the Code Red after they changed everything and made the site.
This sounds easier.
it is honestly like a lot easier, and it looks like cleaner and like crisper.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then obviously been able to do emails and emergency notifications from one site to me is kind of a no-brainer, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also, having Brennan be familiar how to use it, so if I'm in the middle of a call, it's kind of hard for me to stop what I'm doing, go to the station, figure out a message, and then
Yeah.
put it out there. It would be nice if, somebody else knew how to do that too. So. Yeah. Any questions on Bright Arrow?
No.
I'll make a flyer for it though, so that we have something attractive.
Yeah, we can put the sign out at the station.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to quickly go over the Lake Wyola Dam. I know, the dam for the most part is basically fixed, and I put the staff gauge out where Howie wanted it. I don't know how is it still posted at the dam?
It's still closed to the public.
Still closed for the public? Okay, that's kind of all I wanted to know about it. Is there any other questions or concerns about the dam?
No, we're still waiting to hear if we got the grant for the second phase engineering study. Hopefully that's soon.
Yep.
Notified.
Okay. House number advertising, we got like 3 to put up. Basically, that's it.
No, there's 3 more.
I gotta talk to Devin to get that list of people that don't have. Because the police last year made a list of everybody who doesn't have a house number, and maybe we'll do a special mailing with a flyer to that address.
Yeah.
And, so, I gotta figure out how many houses that is, and then exactly how much it'll cost through the post office, so. But yeah, that's pretty much it on that. Do we have any other issues with any other boards?
No, well, and just to go, but the select board voted to keep the the dam closed to the public
Yeah,
at our last meeting.
Okay.
For some time, so.
okay. All right,
Do you want anything from us?
yeah. So next meeting, do we want to schedule a meeting?
Sure.
Sure.
Do we want to do something in 2 months? 1 month, 2 months? But I think in 2 months we'd have a better idea on how COVID
Winter
is.
might look like.
Yeah,
I did notice the groundwater has recovered. Sump pump started going off at 10 feet below grade level. Oh,
oh,
notice that.
the lady slipper.
Hmm.
Really? So you have it 10 feet below?
It's
Some-
2.5 feet below the foundation.
Okay, yeah,
So 10 feet it started today.
yeah. How low did it get before, I'm just kind of.
It stopped mid-July.
Yeah, how much lower did it get when it was the dry spell?
Oh, I don't know. This is
Yeah,
the water's now coming into the
Yeah.
sump pump wells.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how much lower
Oh,
it went.
yeah.
Wasn't triggering it.
Okay, I think, for the most part, Mondays work the best for everybody, Mondays at 5.
So
Right now we're August 10th. You want to do a month and a half, so it could be like the end of September,
Sure.
September 21st, maybe?
That sounds good.
Sure.
September 21st at 5 o'clock?
T. 5 o'clock. Perfect.
Good.
Oops.
Okay,
Excellent.
do I make a motion to adjourn meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Sure.
Second, all in favor? Money, aye?
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Me or I?
Simon's and I.
All right. Okay, thank
All
you, everybody.
Right. Awesome.
Hey, and meeting for